Good morning, church. I pray all is well with you this morning as we dive into Psalms chapter 110. And I pray all is well for this Friday morning. Boy, we've had a lot of rain, but thank God for it. Hey, we're going to dive into Psalms chapter 110. Now, notice in the very first verse, it says, "The Lord is my Lord. Sit at my right." The Lord said to my Lord, "Sit at my right hand." Now, remember, just a few weeks back, I preached this message. It was in Matthew chapter 22, where Christ is being kind of accused or talked to in front of the Pharisees and the Sadducees, and he uses this verse specifically about King David because of the way that they looked at King David. And so Jesus uses this. Now, know that this Psalms 110 was written by King David. And so what Jesus does in Matthew chapter 22 is quote what David says here about the Lord said to my Lord. Now, as you study this chapter, and even though it's a short chapter, again, 7 verses, you have to know that it's talking about the gospel of Jesus Christ. In verse number 2, it says, "The Lord shall send the rod of your strength out of Zion." What is the rod of his strength? It's the gospel of Jesus Christ. It's the death, the burial, the resurrection of Jesus. And so as we study this chapter, you got to have in your mind that it's referring to the gospel. And David's looking forward ahead to that time, the gospel. And so the strength out of Zion is the gospel of Jesus Christ. And it says that the strength will rule in the midst of your enemies. And so even though all that is going around, we have the rule of the gospel of Jesus Christ. Notice in verse number 3, it says, "Your people shall be volunteers." Now, your translation might say something different than volunteers, but I want to take just a moment and talk about what this is saying. And folks, we come to Christ out of our own free will. It's not forced upon us. It's not that somebody kind of makes us do it. And you see, understand this, that a forced obeying is not obeying at all. A forced love is not love at all. And so it's not that we are forced to obey or forced to love. It's that we are compelled inside our heart and that we've surrendered our life to Christ. And so we have willingly given up our own self and selfishness to Christ and who Christ is. And so it is, we have volunteered to the gospel of Jesus Christ. And notice it says, "In the day of your power." What's the day of his power? The gospel of Jesus Christ is his power. In the beauties of holiness. What's the beauty of holiness? The gospel of Jesus Christ. And so just know that as he goes down through there, in fact, he says in verse number 4, "The Lord has sworn," or "the Lord has said," and he says that he will not relent. He's not going to go back on his word. It's about the gospel is going to work. Now, at the end of verse number 4, it says, "You are a priest forever according to the order of Melchizedek." So let's talk about Melchizedek for just a minute and what that means. First off, we don't know a lot about Melchizedek, but there is some we know. First off, we know that the name Melchizedek means the king of righteousness. So Jesus is the king of righteousness. So is the gospel of Christ righteousness. And so that's where we get our righteousness from, is from Jesus, who is the king of righteousness. And so according to the order of Melchizedek. Now, we also don't know who Melchizedek's father is or mother, nor do we know when Melchizedek died and what happened at his death. And so there's so much we don't know about Melchizedek that seem to line up with Jesus Christ in his life. But it does say it's the priest of Melchizedek. Now, there's 3 things we know about a priest that a priest would do. First off, the priest was the key instructor for the family. So a priest would instruct the family the same way that Christ instructs us. The second thing, a priest would make the sin sacrifice for the family. And so what did Christ do? He made the sin sacrifice for the family. And then certainly the third thing that Christ would do as the priest in the priesthood, he is our mediator. And so the priest back then was the mediator between the family and God. Christ is our mediator. And so when he says you are the priest forever according to the rule of Melchizedek, folks, those are the 3 things that Christ does for us. Anyway, I hope you enjoy the study of Psalms chapter 110 as you look at it. May God bless. Look forward to seeing you on Sunday morning. Have a great day.